Tokyo Marine. Tokyo Marine is a insurance business, international insurance business, and specifically I work with Tokyo Marine International. We are based in London and Europe, and we basically sell insurance in the specialty and London markets arena. Very peculiar, different, not your standard car insurance or other types of insurance. We insure insurers, etc. And like all businesses, we have to have, as in Tokyo Marine, we have to have compliance for things like Solvency II, Lloyd's, and other areas. So it's very important that we're able to demonstrate that we've got lineage across our data. We understand what we're doing with our data, how people are dealing with our data, how our data is being used. We've got GDPR, as anybody working in the European domain will understand. So the challenge for Tokyo Marine is, how are we going to bring this up? The normal way within organizations in the financial sector is they want to go with data governance as almost the police force. And I came on board to help them to understand how we could do this in what I've termed as a non-invasive way, and also to use Agile methodology. Now, lots of people might sit there and say, Agile methodology, what does that mean? So just to give you how we've done this or what we've done, we actually have collaboration with our users. We sit down and have conversations with our users. We deliver to our users in a very short time frame. That means we tend to have a conversation and we deliver capability, business value within sprints. So that's done every 2 weeks. We look at building products for them in short time frames that we can use that have got business value. And what we looked at within Tokyo Marine is we wondered, how could we do data governance? How could we demonstrate good data governance? Because all organizations have data governance. It's just that sometimes they don't have it in a formalized way. So the question was, how do we do this in a non-invasive, friendly, approachable way, whilst also doing things that are formalized, that actually we need to understand what people are doing, how they're processing data, etc. So what we went about doing is looking at a particular area we could show business value on. And what we did in that area is we looked at data quality, and we looked at the data quality service and how we could introduce data quality monitoring across Tokyo Marine specific areas that we could look at. So for anybody that's in the data world, this might be familiar to you, this might not be familiar to you. This is taken pretty much from DAMA, from the Data Management Book of Knowledge, version 2. And this is the wheel with all the different data capabilities. And what we did is we rebranded data governance to be called data management, because it's all encompassing. It's all about the strategy, but the policies, how you support it, what standards, etc. And we came up with some simple things. You know, we defined the why, the how, the what, so people could understand what context it put it in. And we also then came up with some principles. So what we did is we came up with some principles about how we could do that. And specifically, the principle we're looking for data quality was this principle number 4. And it's consistency of data. You know, how can we manage quality across the data life cycle, first time, every time, right, etc. So we looked at how we could improve on these particular areas. Tokyo Marine, as an organization, as I said, we deal with different types of insurance portfolio. We're more looking at portfolio type of insurance. We have portfolios and we manage those in a completely different way to normally. If I said this with the underwriters present, they would probably, I don't know, they wouldn't be liking, but we sell insurance. They don't like the world of being insurance salespeople, but we underwrite insurance, and we also look at how we manage the risk at the other end. So what we needed to do in this area is, as a process that we call pre-bind, which is as we're sitting there building a program of work or building a program in terms of insurance about what we're going to sell. Now, what I'll describe by that is, if I take an example, we insure things like marine cargo, marine hull, marine liability. So the cargo that's being transported across the ocean, what's the risk of that cargo? We also insure energy, so renewables. We do wind farms. What's the potential of being hit by hailstones, etc. So they're the areas. So they're quite complex portfolio types of insurance that we look at doing. So what we needed to make sure of is that, as part of doing this, we had to manage certain areas within Lloyd's. There's a Lloyd's minimum standard if we sell stuff through Lloyd's. Not all of our insurance is sold through Lloyd's, but we do sell some of our portfolio through Lloyd's. So Lloyd's require a minimum standard. So we looked at how we could monitor some of those underwriting decisions and figure out what we could do. So we took the DAMA wheel again, and as I said, we've taken on principle 4. And then what we looked at is which particular areas we'd concentrate. Obviously, we're concentrating on the data quality management, but also what we needed to make sure of is that we didn't just do things that didn't have any business value. It's very business value driven, our process. So we made sure that we would end up with models of data. We'd understand what our security access for that data was. We document and create business knowledge about our data, more metadata about our data. And we'd make sure that was managed in a correct way. Where possible, or where we saw areas, we'd see how we could use reference data, or how we could look at where master data management was required. So as we investigated as delivering value, we'd say, this is our minimal viable product. This is where we need to enhance it by building greater consistency in managing data and creating reference data. And what we also did is we mapped it against particular known standards. So as you'll see there, we've got Solvency II, very much an insurance business thing, GDPR, obviously, European and UK. When we say GDPR, we mean GDPR Europe for any policy we sell in Europe, but also UK now, the UK Data Protection Act as well, created as part of Brexiting when the UK left Europe. And also the Lloyd's minimum standards. So we've got this area which is called MS3, which is pricing and rate monitoring. So we introduced particular rules within the field to manage and monitor the information that was required to do that. And what we did is we sat down with, we started a pilot process, and we sat down with the individuals. And normally within data governance, so we talked about these titles like a data steward and data owners, and people get very frightened. What we looked for is we looked for people that were interested in data within the organization. Now within Tokyo Marine, that's very easy, because I would describe Tokyo Marine more as a data business, that we're in the business of data. We capture data. It's very important we have that data, and we use that data to make better decisions for underwriting. And what I mean by that is we might have information by US treaty. So we have a massive area within the London market arena for US treaty. So we're doing portfolios of properties across the US, and what we're looking for is, fires, floods, tornadoes, hurricanes, and we look at catastrophes that are in the higher end, the £100 million worth of catastrophes, what the payout would be on that. And they're the type of things that we insure. So we insure high end, not lots of them, but we have a lot of high value but low volume of insurance business. So what we did is we set up some objectives that we wanted to achieve as part of doing this. And we also utilized, we had a tool that we already used as part of Tokyo Marine Europe, and we decided to enhance that to do monitoring across the organization. And we picked particular underwriting areas that we could work with within the business. So we've got an operations in London, and we've got operations down in Bridgend in Wales. So we worked with those guys, and also we picked two of the underwriting areas. We did property DNF and property treaty. And we also looked at underwriting performance, who work with the underwriters and performance, and looked at how we would create rules that we could monitor and do that within a pilot process. So what we did is we did a proof of concept, we did a pilot. Now, that all sounds very familiar. Why would I describe this as agile? Because the difference here is we took everything, so all the information we learned from this, so all the data decisions we learned from this, we took those through and they are now in our production services. So all the information we learned came through. So we didn't just try out a process in a proof of concept or a pilot. What we did is we said, we know this application works, we know this works as a method. So what we want to do is we say, does this suit the need that we've got? So our decision was yes or no. We ran through a process and gathered information literacy, and we understood what the success criteria should be. One of the other things we did is massively important for me as part of data governance is we created user group communities. So what I mean by that is we actually sat down with people that were interested from these particular areas of the business and sat down and worked with them together as a group and also separately to understand what they do. So we'd roll out the process to these different areas. And we also trained and educated people on stewardship of data for what they needed to know. So we didn't try to look at everything. We just trained them of the areas they'd need to understand. And we also developed training. The training would be specific for, you know, the tool we're using, maybe for the line of business. When I say line of business, London market property DNF is a line of business to us. And also what we did is each time we delivered something, we learned from that and went back and asked for feedback, got feedback and reintroduced it in an empirical method. So we continue to educate and learn as we went along. And what we increased is we increased our user base. We onboarded energy as well and all the energy underwriters. So we've gone from back in June of last year, when we started the process from 0, we've now gone to 70 plus users within underwriting actually using the service. And we're currently in the process of rolling this out to our claims guys as well. And what we also did is we, as you'll notice, 75 users, it's something we're now getting to the bounds of that and now having to look at how we up that number of users from that to the next version of the truth. So what we also did is we looked at the common stuff that people did. We got an application and we took it, unlike in lots of organizations, primarily it might belong to IT. This is a business operations owned. So I work for business operations and this is a business operations owned application. So we monitor it day to day, we operate it, we do all the changes, the rules, etc. The only thing we're looking for an IT service to do is to give us the capabilities to upgrade the application, to apply security patches, etc. What we also did is we realized, because this was data governance and what we believe should be good data governance, what we did is we went through the process of how do we build and create information that is good practice. So what we did is we repeatedly went through process, iterated. So as you'll see, we've got process and procedures. Lots of people talk about it. Our process and procedures are things that we actually documented as we went along. As we went to the next version of the truth, if they changed, we upgraded them, we changed them. We validated them with the business community. We made sure they were useful. We also realized to access data, it was important that we understood who could access data for what purpose. And there didn't exist a proper defined security model to do this. So we built the security model. We built it as an MVP and we've enhanced it as we've gone along. We then took that security model to then build out joiners, movers, leavers processes. So we've now got processes, i.e. who accesses the data for what purpose, for what reason. We can demonstrate that for compliance and audit. We know when somebody joins, moves or leaves, what needs to happen. We can also understand how we do deployments across the process. So we've defined that. So each time, and we're now in the next tier of application, what we're going to do, we've learned and improved that. We also went through the standard processing within this. It's a tier 2 application within Tokyo Marine. It's got disaster recovery contingency plan. So we've got a whole contingency plan that associates with it. And we moved it into a production environment. What we did was that we took all the information that we had and we deployed everything into our production environment. We've now got a fully running and operating production environment team. And that was meant to go in. Our success criteria for that was to go in on the 31st of December 2021. We achieved this in November. So we did this in November, and that was probably, we could have done it sooner, but there was just delays in certain technology and services that we needed to get in place. So we made sure it was resilient while we did this. And we also took all the information that we'd learned from this and made sure we built the teams that required. So we've now got a data quality team that supports the business, that's available with knowledge. We run weekly surgeries for the business to come and talk to us. As I said, we've got a data quality data community user group that meets. We've got Teams channels, we've got information that might be useful for you, information that people want to refer to. So we've generated and built those as we've gone along. So if we just talk about what we did and how we did it, this all, in terms of this was all done absolutely within our 2-week sprint cycle. So what you'll notice is what we did is we went through a process of going through launching and putting into place an application. And what immediately happened is we then had to upgrade the application. So we then planned that. We worked with our collaborative business partners in IT technology, understood what we needed to do. We implemented that. We had some security vulnerability. Again, we did that and deployed that within the same process. So we didn't change what we did just because we wanted to do. And when we talk about planning, what we do planning is we plan based on business value. So we have a product backlog of information and changes that sit there. We've assessed those things against enhanced business value, and we then break them down into sizable deliverable chunks to a small team of which currently is 4 people, soon to be 7, to expand to that process. So what we did is we made sure that we could deliver within the time frame, and our fixed things were the budget we had and the time, i.e. we could do things in 2-week sprint cycles. And we also utilized processing as using tools for that. And what I mean by that is we use Azure DevOps because that's what's available within Tokyo Marine. We could use Jira or other processes like that. What we've got in our Azure DevOps, as we build out anything, we've got wikis. So we've got knowledge-based information. So every time we deliver something, we enhance that. We've got how-to documents. How would you do this? How would you do that? Each time we build a new quality rule, we've got a quality rule, 20, 30-page document. So that gets produced as part of our process. And it's not an arduous process anymore. To start with, we had to come up with what we did, but we've got better and more efficient at doing this. This is our first, 3rd, 4th, 5th iteration of doing this. What we will be doing is we'll be moving that to more automated documentation. And what I mean by that is we're looking at introducing additional tooling within the organization, and we will be taking the information decisions that we've made and automatically documenting that information. So rather than we can't, because we've documented all the information we know, which is usable. And what we're looking to do is enhance that process because we've learned more as we've gone along to make sure that information is available to all parties going forward. Just to go through the standard stuff that we've talked about, we migrated our quality working plan, which we now exist in Azure DevOps. And we do this, which a lot of people find strange. How can you do this in a data governance environment? We have daily scrums. We have daily stand-ups every morning at 9:15 to 9:25. We have sprint review meetings on Tuesdays in the afternoon. So what we do is we do 2-week cycles, and every 2 weeks we sit there and do a review. We do retrospectives on the Tuesdays as well, and we also do sprint planning on a Wednesday morning. So we start a new sprint on a Wednesday morning and break things down like that. And we're very much business value driven. As I said, I work for the group COO of Tokyo Marine, and one of the main factors of using collaborative tools is that the group COO is one of our members of our team, so he's part of the Azure DevOps. So if we need to assign things to him, we want to ask any questions, he wants to look, what he would do is he would go into our repository of information and know where the information was. So we created a massive data repository of information. And sometimes people would go, well, where is this? So we then demonstrate and show, and they go, oh my God, you've actually got all this information. Because at the end of the day, what we look to do is we look to find out what we could do and what was feasible within the time frame. I mean, it's for best practice. And as I said to the guys working with me, the best way to start is to start with something and then iterate from there and make sure we can demonstrate to the business community how that's going to be used. We're now having discussions with our corporate risk guys, so they wanted to utilize the tools. Said we're now rolling out to the rest of our London market, so that would be marine liability, marine hull, accident and health. We've currently got conversations next week with our financial lines people, trade credit, surety, etc. So we've got a massive user base that is continually expanding as we go along. The difference is that when we have a conversation, what will happen is that within a very short period of time, rather than us going through a massive analysis phase and producing lots of information, said these are all the things, what we tend to do is we let the data tell the story. So what we do is we go through, we do some initial discussion, and then we go away and come back and said, like this, and the underwriters or whoever working with say absolutely, and then we build from that. So we're very much looking at empirical delivery, delivering value straight away. And what we do is we always take the information that we've taken people and make sure it gets into our production. If we made decisions about this, those decisions will be in our production services for the guys to utilize. What I mean by that is that when we did our proof of concept and pilot, what we actually did is we did it on data refreshes. All the decisions that we had, we took those and promoted them, went into production, into our production service. So we'd literally got 6 months worth of data when we went into our production service, and the business community were able to look at it. We're then able to build out dashboards from that, demonstrate business value, show to the auditors and compliance guys that this is what we're doing. And in actual fact, this tool not only enabled us to demonstrate to Lloyd's some of the minimum requirements, but it also enabled us to tick a lot of those boxes where where people were asking questions, what are you doing? We said, this is what energy is doing. So an audit requirement might be they need to do this. We were able to demonstrate fully that they were now having some monitoring process of doing that. So part of the key deliverables about this is, to me, it's all about metadata. I'm a bit of a data geek, and it's all about data within data. So to me, the metadata that we had was all about defining the information we have on data too. When I talk about metadata, what I mean is it's not just the configuration and everything else about that. It's also how we build a glossary. So the business has a term and how that term relates to something else, how we understand what our reference data is. So all these are points of metadata, how we understand that we've got security, how we've modeled things, etc. So everything is about metadata for me. So it's the connection and the lineage of the data. The more you do this, the more you enhance the value of your corporate asset of data. What I mean by that is that you enhance the knowledge that you have in the data. You can make better decisions on the data. And the ability to make better decisions affects your bottom line in how you write business. And in Tokyo Marine's case, they're looking at how we can enable them to write better business, I suppose, in the simple way of looking at it. Also, what we have noticed as part of using this is we've now introduced something as a result of this process of working with people, of actually now groups are talking to each other through the use of the same standard tooling and collaboration. So our business operations guys would talk to our finance guys, but not really. But now we're starting those conversations because the issues that were being created, we're now helping and understanding how we can change those by discussion. So they're actually talking to each other on a different level now. And also what that means is we can pass issues from one group of people to another group of people. This has helped Tokyo Marine in terms of, we could take an example of energy. There was lots of manual processes that we had in place, or energy had in place. We introduced this method of process of being able to look at issues and bring them up. the business then, or the business users from Energy and the guys in Bridgend said, actually, we do this, can we use this tool to do the following? And we said, of course we can. So what we did is we removed lots of manual processes and replaced them with workflow audited processes. That was straight out of the box. So we were able to add some massive value just by having discussions with people and actually working with them at that level. And to me, the important thing about this is working with the business community and building those communities, because data governance is all about data, people, and process. And so it's really important. The people are as important as the data, as important as the process. So if you can start to work on those levels, people get more interested. And we have a massive amount of interest from some of the underwriters, depending on what they want at the particular time. And obviously, as they're busy, they might fade away and then come back and ask questions. So what we looked at, as you can see, we've got lots of different things that we delivered. We've got rule definitions, they're business rules and how we test them and what we do with them. We've got lots of due diligence. So what I mean by that is all the different things that we need to have in place. The other thing that we did as part of running the process within anything that we did discovery on, not only did we look at monitoring, introduce data quality monitoring, but we'd also say where we could identify PII, so personally identifiable information. So for data breaches and GDPR and things like this, not only were we able to do that, we've also used this particular tool to enable Tokyo Marine to do data retention. So what we do is use the same tool to validate, pull up information where information should be removed or overwritten. Some people call it masking, but basically overwrite the data, because some of the older applications we can't delete. So what we'd have to do is overwrite. So we're using DQ Pro to identify those particular things we need to overwrite to make some decisions. And we've got processes in place that enable that to do. So again, just something that that's come out of the benefit of working with the users. And the benefit here is that because the business users are using this tool on a regular day-to-day basis as part of their day-to-day processing, the fact they've now got some issues coming up as part of retention is easy for them to use. It's just something else they can do. And what we also did, as I said previously, we created a security model of how we need people to access data. It's very important within the compliance world about who's accessing what, for what purpose. You'll find within SOX and all this, another area of compliance, you have to look at what people are doing. So what we did is, that was our mindset. We started on building what we say data design, data compliance by design, and data protection by design. So within terms of technology, they'd be asking the question, what do you mean by this? So we demonstrated how that would be approached. So we carry out DPIAs when we get new data sources. We make sure that we're going through those processes. So to now, it's a very simple process for us to do those things. What we've also done specifically, one of the big benefits for us is our level of linking our, I would say, our DevOps type processes, ensure DevOps, or our processes to information that we've discovered. So as we build and understand more, we create wikis, and those wikis link out to our SharePoint. So people can therefore share. They would go into our Azure DevOps, or a lot of people call it DevOps, but it's just a method or a tool that you can use, or Jira. And we just use that for storing information, for storing the links to link information together with our documents stored in other places like SharePoint, etc. And how we store them and how people can access the information. We've also developed that as as an MVP security model for data access to our services as well. And as I say, we've worked with data retention in building some data retention capabilities, which we're about to roll out over the next few months to enable the business to do that. Something that was costing an awful lot of money, that wasn't going anywhere. We've been able to very quickly and easily enable them to do certain things quickly and easily, because the business community are able to use it. We've built process of how we deploy services, how we upgrade the services. We built a support model, security access model, etc. So all the things that are sitting on there. And the important thing for us is that creating data literacy. So what we did is, as we found something and we discovered it, rather than not keeping the information, we enhanced our data understanding. And what I mean by that is that our data catalogue, our business glossary is enhanced. So we now know that particular items that are sitting on our business glossary, which is a working glossary of terms, we now know what business monitoring rules we've got in quality that we're running over those things. Currently, metadata stored in Excel, but soon to be stored in other tools as well as we build out this capability and functionality. And we were able to also define single sources of truth, where the sources of truth should be, and what rules we should have in place for those sources of truth. So in terms of the enhancements, what we've done is, it's very, I would say we've delivered an awful lot of capability and functionality just by that consistent iterative process. So if you look at lots of different things that we've got sitting in our backlog of terms, as I said, we're onboarding additional services. We are doing a process. Sanctions is a big thing for us, you know, how you trade. So an example of that would be the sanctions that have been imposed by the war in the Ukraine. You know, are we allowed to sell insurance, or not really sell insurance, bad term for us to use, but are we allowed to deal with and have dealings with particular countries as part of that sanctions list? So we obviously have to operate by that. So we're looking at enhancing the sanctions process with very much a manual process, and there is some system stuff to actually monitoring sanctions across the organization. So we know where sanctions might be breached, because you might, because of the run time and lead time on the programs of work, we might start a process so it's fine, and then suddenly somebody goes to war. So we're no longer, are we allowed to sell? Are we allowed to deal, trade, build the profile of work, or do we have to stop that process? What's the risk that we've got? What's the mitigation? So we're enhancing that process for the business. Also, really important to us is we've gone through a process of stewardship training. And what we mean by that is we've enabled business users to understand what data stewardship is. We've enabled business users to understand what data governance is. And that goes from me training, coaching the executives, starting with Group COO and going through that executive structure, going through and enhancing and enabling them to understand what governance is, what the benefit of governance is. Something that everybody knew they should have, but weren't quite sure what it was. So, and that's an ongoing process. And as we enhance and build out more users and build our community, that will get more and more. Because communications and putting out the message to these guys is really important. So we started very small, very quiet, and now what people are doing is they're coming to us and saying, how can you help in lots of different areas? Just some very simple stuff about quite a nice slide, I suppose, part of what we'd done when we were presenting out. We said, what was the feedback from the initial proof of concept? So you'll see it was very simple. People went, yeah, self-explanatory and all that stuff. And then, and these are what the people said rather than what I've coded up. And then what we did is, as we went through to the pilot, which run straight after. So we did our proof of concept, ran into pilot, and then ran the pilot and ran in a pilot phase for several months. But the initial pilot that we ran was for like 4 to 6 weeks. What happened was the real feedback was, it's simple, it's easy, how you've done it, what you've done, how you've communicated with us, you know, how you've taken on responsibility about certain areas. Part of this is building what I'd say an advisory service, building a capability for people to come to ask questions and to enable them to ask those questions about governance in a way that will enable better understanding of how you manage data across your organization. It's really important. It's we don't have all the answers. So in cases we've looked across the organization, seeing where they do good practice with data and saying, can we do more of that? You know, we've got capital modeling area. How are they doing? What are they doing well? So we're not just telling people what to do, we're discovering better ways of doing things and understanding how we can do that. Just a little bit about data quality within there. It's all about operations, underwriting, controls, and compliance, effectively. So what we've now got is a workflow that works. It's simple and easy for them to use, and that they can utilize going forward, that they seem happy with. And it's not something that we imposed on them. We went through this proof of concept and pilot, and we then asked them the decision: do you want to carry on, or do you want us to, what do you want to do? And this, the first, what they said to us is, please don't take it away. What we've now got is an enhanced, enhanced to what we have, and we're looking to build it out more, because for us it's at a level that we need to make it even better. So we're continuing to understand how we can do that for the business community going forward. Just some of the other things that we're looking with it to enhance our services within this area. What I mean by that is that we've also got, we're looking at a tool called Data.World. Data.World is like a profiling, business glossary tool, then data visualization, something that Tokyo Marine as an organization have invested in. And we're looking at Accord is a reference architecture for the insurance industry, which has got 5,000 plus terms in. We're looking at bringing that on board and modeling it up. It's a UML version of the truth, and we're looking to bring that into Tokyo Marine and link that to the information we've already learned to enhance that even more. We're building out business rules in a way that enables them to actually be business rules that we store in a single repository. Of how we do that, we might have them in lots of places, but how we get that metadata repository so we can utilize them effectively. We're looking at the traceability across, because what I want in all this information is whatever we do, we're looking at getting that traceability. How can we trace lineage, etc., easily and efficiently? Obviously, we're looking at this traceability for projects and for what we've delivered and business value we've done. Currently, we use Azure DevOps. We potentially might use Jira or Confluence going forward in the future. Who knows? It doesn't really matter to us. In terms of, we've got this demonstration of data lineage. Part of that is from the business perspective. They tend to talk about the semantic reporting layer, so how they see that reporting and information. And we're starting up with a POC. We're looking at a tool called Sparks EA, and we're looking at validating against data governance use cases. And what I mean by that is we're actually going to take our joiners, leavers, movers process that we've got as a good example. And that sits in, we've got it in Visio, Excel, on all the different things. We've got documents to support it. And we're going to put it into Sparks as a model process, so we can now actually have it as repeatable sections of the process. We can link it to other things. We can put the documentation to it. So you'll notice, again, this is all about enhancing the metadata of that information going forward. Just a little bit about data governance, some of the other things about data governance, about a program of work and doing these things. It sounds very, the formalized framework, the decisions, etc. It is good to have a to have a framework, to put something together. It gives you the capability of calibrating on that terms, and that's what we're looking to do, how we enhance it. I won't go through all those, but they're just some information for you guys to share later. And there's our principles that we looked at. There are just a refresh of those principles we spoke about initially, was the consistency one, number 4. And these are just the bits about that data quality stuff that I'll just leave you guys to go through and to have a read through later on. And that's it. Okay.